Let's make a mini kaleidoscope with one of the beads that we just made. There's the bead. We also have a brass tube that's threaded on both ends. 3 front surface mirrors. This is the eyepiece and a convex lens. An image end cap with 2 retaining dust covers. The plastic spacing sleeve, crystals, some extra crystals, Scotch tape, here's the mirrors, toothpick, 2-part epoxy, these are the 2 different kaleidoscope bodies that I make. The one on the left is for the kaleidoscope necklace. Starting with the eyepiece, I'm going to epoxy the lens into place. So you need 2 parts equal of the resin and the hardener, and then you're going to mix them for about 10 seconds till they are combined. Then using just a little bit on the tip of the toothpick, you're going to put the epoxy on the very bottom surface, right around the outer rim where the lens is going to sit. Very careful not to get it in the center where the hole is, and not too much. Carefully holding the lens so you don't get any fingerprints on it. It has a flat surface and a convex surface. The convex surface needs to go down facing the hole. I use the back end of the toothpick to press it down, get that epoxy touching the lens, and then we're going to let it sit for a few minutes to set up while we work on the rest of the kaleidoscope. Next, we're going to take the 3 mirrors. They're individually wrapped. And we're very carefully going to unwrap the first one, trying not to get your fingerprints on them. And they need to be cleaned a little bit. So I'm going to wipe them down behind the scenes. Taking the brass tube, I'm just going to lay the mirror in about 1/2 inch or so. The part that is facing up is the part that doesn't have a line on it. You'll see in a second that the mirror has a line on one side and none on the other. The part that doesn't have the line needs to go toward the middle. Cleaning the next mirror. There you can see how the line is on one side and the lined side is the part that doesn't have the mirrored surface, and then the surface mirror, you can see in the reflection that it's applied directly to the surface of the glass. I'm making like a V shape, holding both pieces of the mirror in while we're doing the 3rd piece. Going to clean this one too. And then this piece gets put on top, slid in to be part of a triangle with the line facing up. Very carefully, you're going to get all 3 pieces to be the exact same length outside, match up the ends, and we're going to tape it up. Going around all 3 pieces of mirror, it's just going to bind them together so that they can slide into the tube easily and not move once they're inside. Sometimes the tape likes to rip, so I just pull that off and they are fine and they're on their own. Now we're going to take the threaded image end cap and one of the retaining dust covers and put that down inside, making sure it's sitting flat to the bottom. The piece I just put in there is a spacing sleeve, and the piece I'm showing you now is the lens retaining spring. I throw that out because I epoxy the lens into place. The retaining spring is really hard to use. Dumping out the crystals that come with the kit, I'm taking out a couple of the colors that I don't prefer. They have a gray one in there, it's not really great, and a lot of green, so I take out one of the greens. And it's not enough to fill the chamber that I'm trying to fill, so I add my own crystals. They are 3mm bicone crystal beads. I'm going to add a variety of colors. Not too much and not too few. You don't want to overfill the chamber, otherwise the crystals don't move, they don't tumble, and you don't get anything going on inside. If there's not enough, you get a lot of blank space, and that's no fun. Now I'm going to dump them into the image cap. And put the other retaining dust cover on top. And I'm going to screw it onto the brass body. And then we need to use the other end, needs to have the lens so we can see properly all the way through and check to see what's going on inside. Now I'm checking the view to see if they tumble. And they do, so I'm going to take it all apart and we will glue the rest of this together. We need to mix up a larger amount of epoxy since we're going to now glue the bead body on as well as both ends. So equal parts again of each part, hardener and the resin, mixing them up for about 10 seconds. And the first thing I'm going to do is taking just a little bit on the tip of the toothpick again. I'm going to take the eyepiece and put just a tiny bit on the top of the lens, around the outer edge, of course, and that basically just seals it into place. Making sure not to get any of the epoxy on the lens. Now I'm just going to smooth some epoxy around on the threading, halfway up the threading. And we're going to thread on the filled image end cap very carefully. And it needs to go all the way down and touch the retaining dust cover so it keeps everything in place. Now I am adding some epoxy around the surface of the brass tube. Not too much. Now looking at the bead, I need to decide which end is up. The way I'm holding it, that is the bottom of the kaleidoscope. So I'm now pushing it on the direction that I want it to go. And see how it pushes the glue down. So sometimes it'll go into the threads. This is too much, so I'm going to have to remove it with the toothpick. I can drag some of the epoxy away, just dragging the toothpick through that groove. Trying to be as careful as possible so that we don't get the epoxy on any of the outer surface. And fitting it down the rest of the way. Need to remove a little bit more. Pushing it down to fit. I'm cleaning off a little bit of epoxy that is on the surface. You want to do that before it sets up. Taking a little bit more epoxy and smearing it on the threads that are exposed. Not too much, but all the way around. And then screwing on the eyepiece all the way till it fits against the glass. Checking to make sure that there isn't any epoxy that needs to come off. And there you go.